Admiral Vextor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and watched the display screen with growing irritation. A single ship had entered the Kelthera system. Just one vessel. It moved through space with steady confidence, heading directly toward his blockade line. The Admiral was a Krathan, a species that had fought in 47 campaigns across the galaxy. His gray skin was marked with battle scars that his people wore with pride. He had commanded fleets for 20 years. He had seen enemy armadas break and run, but this single ship did not slow down. It did not change course. It simply advanced. What type of vessel is that? Vextor asked his tactical officer. Commander Shiral, a Vespin with silver scales and 4 arms, worked at her console. Her species was known for careful thinking and attention to detail. She pulled up the scan results and frowned. The ship is broadcasting human identification codes, she said, but our database has no match for its design. The energy signature is unlike anything we have recorded. Humans. Vextor had heard of them. They were new to space travel. They had only left their home world 50 years ago. They were primitive compared to the congregation species, who had traveled the stars for thousands of years. Send them the standard warning, Vextor ordered. Tell them to leave immediately or face destruction. The communications officer sent the message. The response came back within seconds. A human voice spoke in clear galactic standard language. This is the UCNS Indomitable. We are on a humanitarian mission to reach the refuge colonies. A plague has broken out. Civilians need evacuation. We request passage through your blockade. Vextor laughed. The sound was harsh and cold. A humanitarian mission? That is not our concern. This system is under congregation control. No unauthorized vessels may pass. You have 1 hour to turn back. The human ship did not respond with words. Instead, it sent a data packet. Shiral opened it and her scales paled. Admiral, they sent us a threat assessment, she said quietly. And? Vextor demanded. Their computer has classified our entire fleet as insufficient threat level. They do not see us as dangerous. The bridge fell silent. Every officer stared at their stations. The Eternal Dominion was a dreadnought, the pride of the congregation fleet. Around it were 22 other warships, including 6 heavy cruisers and 8 destroyers. This was enough firepower to conquer a small empire, and the humans called it insufficient. Vextor felt anger burning in his chest. These humans were arrogant. They needed to learn respect. Perhaps their translation is wrong, Vextor said. Perhaps they mean something else. Shiral shook her head. No, Admiral. The translation is correct. They truly believe we cannot stop them. 1 hour passed. The human ship did not turn back. It continued forward at the same steady speed. Vextor watched it approach, his hands gripping the arms of his command chair. How far is it now? He asked. 400,000 kilometers, Shiral replied. Still advancing. Vextor made his decision. Target the human ship. Fire a warning shot. Use the main plasma lance. Miss by 100 meters. The weapon officer pressed the firing controls. The Eternal Dominion's main gun charged with a high-pitched whine. Then it released a beam of superheated plasma. The bolt of energy crossed space in an instant. It passed close enough to the human ship to light up their sensors. A plasma lance could cut through the shields of any cruiser in the congregation fleet. It could melt hull metal in seconds. Vextor expected the humans to panic. He expected them to stop and reconsider. Instead, the Indomitable kept moving forward. It did not even slow down, did they see it? Vextor demanded. Yes, Admiral. They definitely detected the plasma bolt. But they show no reaction. Vextor stood up from his chair. Then we will teach them respect. Order 3 destroyers to intercept, disable their engines. Use whatever force is necessary. 3 congregation destroyers broke formation and accelerated toward the human vessel. Each destroyer carried enough weapons to destroy a dozen merchant ships. They spread out in an attack pattern surrounding the Indomitable from 3 sides. The human ship still did not change course. It did not power up weapons. It simply continued forward. Are they insane? One of the bridge officers whispered. Shiral watched her displays carefully. Something felt wrong. The human ship was too calm, too confident. Her instincts told her this was a mistake, but she did not speak. Vextor had made his decision. The destroyers opened fire at close range. Particle beams and fusion missiles struck the Indomitable from all directions. The weapons were powerful enough to tear apart any normal warship. Then something happened that made every officer on the bridge freeze. Shields appeared around the human ship. They were not the flickering energy barriers that congregation ships used. These shields were different. They glowed with a deep blue light and seemed solid like metal. The destroyer weapons hit those shields and simply stopped. The energy dispersed harmlessly. Impossible, Vextor breathed. But it was not impossible. It was happening right in front of them. The Indomitable began to accelerate. It moved faster now, heading straight for the blockade line. As it moved, small turrets emerged from its hull. They were point defense weapons designed to shoot down incoming missiles. But these turrets did more than defend. They fired back at the destroyers with incredible speed and accuracy. The weapons were railguns, launching metal slugs at tremendous velocity. One destroyer took 3 hits to its engine section. Explosions bloomed along its hull. The ship spun out of control and went dark. "Report!" Vextor shouted. "Destroyer Valiant is destroyed," Chiral said, her voice tight. "Total loss. No survivors detected." The remaining 2 destroyers continued their attack, but now they moved with desperation rather than confidence. They knew they were outmatched. They fired everything they had at the human ship. The Indomitable's shields held. Then something massive emerged from the ship's side. A large turret rotated into position. The barrel was enormous, far larger than any weapon the congregation used. It aimed at the second destroyer and fired. There was no beam of light, no missile trail, just a solid projectile moving faster than sensors could track. It hit the destroyer and punched completely through it. The ship broke apart in a cascade of explosions and debris. The 3rd destroyer captain made the wise choice. He turned his ship and retreated at maximum speed, trailing smoke from multiple hull breaches. The Indomitable did not pursue. It simply resumed its original course, heading directly toward the main congregation fleet. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Vextor stared at the tactical display. 2 destroyers destroyed in less than 5 minutes. The human ship was barely scratched. Its shields had not even flickered under the assault. "Get me all ship captains on the command channel," he ordered. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "We will face this threat with our full strength. No single ship can stand against the combined might of a congregation battle fleet." But even as he gave the order, Vextor wondered if he was right. The humans had called his fleet insufficient. Perhaps they knew something he did not. Perhaps they had a very good reason for their confidence. The Indomitable was now 200,000 kilometers away and closing. Soon the real battle would begin. Commander Chiral watched the tactical display with growing concern. The human ship was now 150,000 kilometers away. Every second brought it closer to their battle line. Around her, the bridge crew worked with nervous energy. They had all seen what happened to the destroyers. Admiral Vextor stood at the center of the bridge, speaking to all ship captains through the command channel. His voice carried the weight of his experience. "We will use the killbox formation," he announced. "This tactic has never failed in 300 years of congregation warfare. Every ship will target the human vessel simultaneously. We will create overlapping fields of fire. Nothing can survive that much concentrated firepower." The fleet began to move. 20 remaining warships arranged themselves in a careful pattern. Cruisers formed the outer ring. Destroyers filled the gaps between them. The Eternal Dominion held the center position, its massive weapons ready to fire. Chiral studied the human ship through her sensors. The Indomitable was unlike any vessel she had ever seen. Its hull was thick and angular, built from overlapping plates of metal. There were no smooth curves or elegant lines. It looked brutal and functional, like a hammer made for war. "Admiral, we should consider negotiation," Chiral said carefully. "This ship has technology we do not understand. Perhaps we should let them pass." Vextor turned to look at her. His eyes were hard. "Negotiation?" "After they destroyed 2 of our ships." "No, Commander. We will show these humans that the congregation does not back down from threats." "With respect, Admiral, they only fired after we attacked them first," Chiral pointed out. "Their original request was for peaceful passage. They entered our space without permission," Vextor snapped. "That alone is an act of aggression." Chiral wanted to argue further, but she knew it was useless. Vextor had made his decision. She turned back to her console and checked the fleet's weapon status. Everything was ready. The Indomitable entered the killbox zone. It was now surrounded on all sides by congregation warships. The formation was perfect. There was nowhere for the human ship to run. A communication came from the human vessel. The same calm voice spoke. "You are interfering with a humanitarian mission. People are dying while you delay us. Last warning. Stand aside or be removed." Vextor laughed. "Removed? By one ship? Their arrogance is incredible. All vessels prepare to fire on my command." Chiral watched her targeting computer link with the rest of the fleet. 20 ships, hundreds of weapons, all aimed at a single target. The power readings were enormous. This was enough energy to destroy a small moon. "All ships report ready," the weapons officer announced. Vextor raised his hand. "Fire!" Space lit up with weapons fire. Plasma beams, particle lances, fusion missiles, and kinetic rounds all converged on the Indomitable at once. The amount of energy was blinding. Sensors overloaded trying to track it all. The human ship's shields flared bright blue. They held for 8.3 seconds. Then they failed with a burst of dissipating energy. "The shields were gone. Shields down!" someone shouted. Direct hits on the hull. For a moment, Vextor thought they had won. The fleet continued firing, pouring weapons fire into the now vulnerable ship. Explosions bloomed across the Indomitable's surface as plasma struck its armor. But the ship did not break apart. It did not explode. It did not even slow down. Chiral adjusted her sensors and her scales went pale. "Admiral, their armor is absorbing the hits. Our weapons are barely penetrating." "What do you mean, barely penetrating? We just hit them with enough firepower to glass a planet." "Look at the damage readouts," Chiral said urgently. "Their hull is meters thick. Multiple layers, reactive armor plates, self-sealing foam, redundant structural supports. Our shots are creating surface damage only." The Indomitable stopped moving forward. For just a second, Vextor felt hope. Maybe they had damaged its engines. Maybe it was disabled. Then the human ship began to rotate. Slowly, deliberately, it turned to present its side to the congregation fleet. The movement was not random. It was tactical. It was confident. "What are they doing?" Vextor demanded. Chiral's hands moved frantically across her console. "Admiral, they are preparing a broadside attack. Energy readings are spiking across their entire flank. I count 8 major weapon turrets charging. All ships evasive maneuvers." "Spread out," Vextor ordered. But the order came too late. The Indomitable fired its broadside. 8 railgun turrets launched their projectiles in rapid sequence. These were not small point defense rounds. These were massive slugs of depleted uranium, each one weighing hundreds of kilograms. They accelerated to a fraction of light speed in an instant. The first slug hit a congregation cruiser. It punched through the ship's shields as if they were not there. It tore through the hull, through internal compartments, through the reactor core and out the other side. The cruiser exploded from within, breaking into 3 large pieces. The second and third slugs hit 2 destroyers. One ship was cut completely in half. The other lost its entire forward section and tumbled away, dead in space. The remaining slugs found their targets with terrible accuracy. Each shot was a kill. There was no wounding, no disabling, just total destruction. "Report casualties," Vextor shouted over the chaos on the bridge. Chiral struggled to process all the incoming data. 5 ships destroyed in the first salvo, 2 more heavily damaged and losing power. The Indomitable was not finished. A massive weapon emerged from the center of its hull. Chiral had never seen anything like it. The barrel was as wide as a shuttlecraft and ran almost the entire length of the ship. "What is that?" she whispered. Warning alarms screamed across her console. "Admiral, massive energy spike. That weapon is charging something enormous. Target it. All ships focus fire on that weapon," Vextor commanded. The fleet fired everything at the Indomitable's main gun. Dozens of weapons struck it. The armor around the weapon glowed red from the heat. But the weapon continued charging, then it fired. There was no beam, no explosion. Just a solid projectile moving so fast that sensors could barely track it. The slug was 500 tons of pure tungsten, accelerated by magnetic force to incredible velocity. It hit the Eternal Dominion on the port side. The flagship's shields tried to stop it. They failed instantly. The tungsten slug punched through 3 meters of armor plating. It continued through deck after deck, destroying everything in its path. It passed through the main reactor room, causing a chain reaction of explosions. The slug exited the starboard side of the Eternal Dominion and kept going. It struck a cruiser directly behind the flagship. Then it hit a destroyer beyond that. 7 ships in total were destroyed or crippled by a single shot. Chiral was thrown from her station as the flagship shook violently. Emergency lights flickered on. Alarms wailed. She could smell smoke and burning circuits. "Admiral," she called out. There was no answer. She looked toward the command chair and saw Vextor lying on the deck. A support beam had fallen on him. He was not moving. The ship's computer spoke in a calm voice. "Critical damage to all primary systems. Reactor containment failing. Hull breaches on decks 5 through 20. Life support compromised." Shiral pulled herself to the nearest functioning console. She accessed the fleet command network. What she saw made her heart sink. The killbox formation was destroyed. More than half the fleet was gone. The remaining ships were scattered and damaged, and the Indomitable? It was still there, still functional. Already turning to line up another shot, Shiral made a decision. As the senior surviving officer, command fell to her. She activated the emergency broadcast channel. "All ships, this is Commander Shiral. I am assuming fleet command. All vessels are ordered to retreat immediately. Maximum speed. Do not engage the enemy." "I repeat, full retreat," some captains protested. Others simply obeyed. Within seconds, the surviving congregation ships turned and fled at maximum velocity. They left behind debris fields where proud warships had been. Shiral watched the Indomitable on her display. The human ship did not pursue them. It did not fire again. It simply returned to its original heading and continued toward the refuge colonies at the same steady pace. The message was clear. The humans had not come to conquer. They had not come to prove their strength. They had simply come to complete their mission, and nothing the congregation could do would stop them. Shiral looked at the casualty reports. 14 ships destroyed, 3 more so damaged they would never fly again. Thousands of crew members dead. All because Admiral Vextor refused to step aside. She thought about the human assessment.
Insufficient threat level.
Now she understood what that meant. It was not arrogance. It was simply the truth. The congregation high council chamber was filled with angry voices. Representatives from 7 different species argued with each other, their translators working overtime to keep up with the chaos. At the center of it all stood Commander Shiral, now promoted to Admiral after the disaster at Kelthera. Chancellor Vorn, a massive breakor with 6 legs and armored plates, slammed his manipulator appendage on the table. "This is unacceptable. A single human vessel destroyed an entire battle group. We must respond with overwhelming force." "And lose more ships?" Minister Telrish asked. She was a Keelant, small and bird-like, but her voice was sharp. "Did you not read Admiral Shiral's report? Their technology is far beyond ours." "I read the report," Vorn growled. "I simply do not believe it." "One ship cannot have that much power." Shiral stepped forward. "Chancellor, I was there. I saw what their ship could do. The Indomitable took direct hits from our entire fleet and sustained only minor damage. Their weapons punched through our best shields like they were not even there. I am telling you the truth." "Then how did these primitive humans develop such technology?" another council member demanded. "They have only been in space for 50 years. "That is what we need to understand," Shiral said. "I have spent the last 3 weeks analyzing every bit of data we collected from the engagement. I have also researched human history and culture. What I found was disturbing." She activated the holographic display. Images appeared showing human warships under construction. "The Indomitable is not a special vessel," Shiral explained. "It is a standard human heavy cruiser. There are 40 ships of this class currently in service, and that is not the worst part." She changed the image to show much larger vessels. The council chamber fell silent. "These are human dreadnoughts and battleships. They are 3 times larger than the Indomitable. Our intelligence estimates they carry 10 times the firepower." Minister Talresh leaned forward, her feathers ruffling with anxiety. "How many of these larger ships do they have?" "At least 20 that we know of. And they are building more." The chamber erupted in shocked conversation. Chancellor Vorn raised his voice to restore order. "This is impossible. Our shipyards have been building warships for centuries. How could they possibly match our fleet in only 50 years? Shiral displayed more data, because they build their ships differently than we do. Look at this comparison. A congregation cruiser has a crew of 400. The human cruiser has a crew of 150. They use more automation and redundant systems." She pulled up another image showing the internal structure of both ships. "We build our ships for efficiency and speed. Humans build for survival and overwhelming firepower. Their ships have backup systems for their backup systems. They assume they will take heavy damage in battle, so they design every vessel to keep fighting even when badly hurt. This is madness, Vorn muttered. Such design is wasteful, is it? Shiral challenged. Their ship survived everything we threw at it. Ours did not. Which design is truly wasteful? She continued her presentation, showing records from human history. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years, not against alien species but against each other. Their entire planet was constantly at war. They developed weapons and tactics through brutal experience. When they finally united and went to space, they brought all that knowledge with them. Talresh studied the data carefully. So they expect war. They prepare for enemies they have not even met yet. Exactly, Shiral confirmed. We became the dominant power in this region because we had superior numbers and coordination. But we never faced an enemy that could match or exceed our technology. Humans assume every enemy will have equivalent or better weapons, so they always prepare for the worst case. She displayed one final image. It showed a human military doctrine document that their spies had intercepted. This is their core philosophy. They call it preparation through overwhelming force. Every weapon system is designed with what they call acceptable overkill. If they think they need 1 missile to destroy a target, they carry 5. If they think they need armor 1 meter thick, they make it 3 meters thick. Chancellor Vorn was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its aggressive edge. What do you recommend, Admiral? We need to negotiate, Shiral said firmly. We cannot win a war against humans. Not with our current technology. If we try, they will destroy us. Negotiate? Another council member protested. That would show weakness. It would show wisdom, Talresh countered. Admiral Shiral is right. We lost this battle before it even started because we did not understand our opponent. The council debated for hours. Some members wanted revenge. Others wanted to ignore the humans and hope they stayed in their own territory. But slowly, reality set in. The congregation had been the most powerful force in this region for 3 centuries. That time was over. Finally, a vote was taken. The decision was made. The congregation would seek peace. Admiral Shiral, Chancellor Vorn said, you will lead our diplomatic mission to Earth. You survived their firepower. Perhaps you can also secure our future. Shiral bowed her head in acceptance. It was a heavy responsibility. She would be the first congregation ambassador to make contact with human leadership. The fate of billions might rest on how well she performed this duty. 3 weeks later, Shiral's diplomatic vessel approached the Sol system. She stood on the observation deck and looked out at the human home system with wonder and fear. What she saw shocked her. Earth was surrounded by massive orbital stations. Shipyards stretched for thousands of kilometers. Dozens of warships, each as large or larger than the Indomitable, moved through carefully organized traffic patterns. How many ships do you count? She asked her aide. The young officer checked his sensors. Over 200 military vessels in this system alone, Admiral. And that does not include the defense platforms and automated weapon satellites. Shiral felt a chill run down her spine. The congregation's entire military had perhaps 300 warships spread across dozens of systems. The humans had nearly that many in just their home system. Her communications officer spoke up. Admiral, we are being hailed by Earth Defense Command. They are granting us permission to approach the primary orbital station. Proceed as directed, Shiral ordered. As they flew closer to the massive station, Shiral studied the humans through her scanners. She saw merchant vessels, mining ships, passenger transports, and exploration craft. But she also saw the warships, always the warships maintaining constant patrols. They really do expect war at any moment, her aide observed quietly. Yes, Shiral agreed. They are always ready, always prepared. That is why they are so dangerous. The diplomatic vessel docked at the station. Shiral prepared herself for the meeting. She wore her formal uniform and carried no weapons, as was proper for a peaceful envoy. A human delegation met her at the airlock. They were smaller than she expected, standing barely taller than her chest. But they moved with confidence and purpose. The leader stepped forward. She was a female with dark skin and gray hair. Welcome to Earth, Admiral Shiral. I am Ambassador Chen. We have been expecting you. Thank you for receiving me, Shiral replied. I come seeking peace between our peoples. Ambassador Chen smiled. That is good. We never wanted war in the first place. We simply wanted to save lives at the refuge colonies. Your fleet chose to stand in our way. Shiral nodded slowly. That was a mistake. One that cost many lives on both sides. Only on your side, actually, Chen corrected gently. The Indomitable took no casualties. But we understand your meaning. Please come with me. We have much to discuss. As Shiral followed the human ambassador through the station, she saw more evidence of their military strength. But she also saw children playing in observation domes. She saw families gathering in common areas. She saw artists creating murals on the walls. These humans were not mindless warmongers. They were people who valued life and art and family. They simply refused to be caught unprepared. They had learned from their violent history and built their entire civilization around the motto of peace through strength. Shiral realized something important. The congregation had always believed that their way was the only way. They had never considered that another species might approach warfare completely differently. That arrogance had cost them dearly. Now it was time to learn, time to adapt, and time to forge a new relationship with these surprising humans. The conference room was located at the heart of the orbital station, with large windows showing the blue curve of Earth below. Shiral sat across from Ambassador Chen and several human military advisors. Between them, a holographic display showed star maps and proposed treaty boundaries. "Let us begin with what happened at Kelthera," Chen said. "I want to understand your perspective on the incident." Shiral took a breath. This would not be easy, but honesty was necessary. "We made mistakes. Admiral Vextor saw your request for passage as a challenge to congregation authority. He believed that allowing you through would show weakness. He was wrong." One of the human military officers, a tall man with sharp eyes, leaned forward. "Your admiral fired on the Indomitable first. The warning shot, then the 3 destroyers. Do you understand why we responded as we did?" "Yes," Shiral said. "You were protecting yourselves and your mission. You gave us multiple warnings. We chose to ignore them." Ambassador Chen nodded approvingly. "That is a fair assessment. Admiral, I want you to know that we did not come to your space looking for a fight. We simply needed to reach the refuge colonies as quickly as possible." "I understand that now," Shiral replied. "But I must ask a question that troubles me. Your ship, the Indomitable, could have destroyed our entire fleet. Why did you stop after you broke our formation? Why did you not pursue and finish us?" Chen smiled slightly. "Because we are not conquerors, Admiral. We build powerful weapons to defend ourselves, not to attack others. Once you retreated, you were no longer a threat to our mission. There was no reason to continue fighting." The military officer added, "Our doctrine is simple. We prepare for war so that we can maintain peace. If someone attacks us, we will defend ourselves with maximum force. But once the threat is eliminated, we stop. We do not believe in unnecessary killing." Shiral found this both reassuring and confusing. "But your weapons, the way you build your ships, everything suggests you expect constant warfare." "We do expect it," Chen admitted. "Human history taught us a harsh lesson. Peace only lasts when both sides know that war would be too costly. We make sure everyone understands that attacking humanity would be very, very costly. Overwhelming force prevents conflict," the officer said. "Weakness invites it. That is what thousands of years of human warfare taught us." Shiral thought about this carefully. It was so different from congregation philosophy. Her people had relied on numbers and coordination. They never imagined someone would build individual ships so powerful that numbers did not matter. "May I ask about your weapons technology?" she ventured. "How did you develop such advanced systems in only 50 years of spaceflight?" The military officer glanced at Chen, who nodded permission. "We did not start from nothing," he explained. "For centuries before we reached space, humans were developing weapons. Nuclear technology, railguns, advanced materials. When we finally built starships, we already had most of the weapons ready. We just adapted them for space warfare." He pulled up a diagram showing the evolution of human weapons. "Your species developed space travel first, then slowly developed weapons to match. We did it backward. We had devastating weapons long before we had the ships to carry them." Shiral studied the timeline. It was true. Humans had been splitting atoms and building missiles while they were still confined to their home planet. By the time they reached space, they had weapons technology that was centuries ahead of their shipbuilding capability. "That is terrifying," she said honestly. Chen's expression grew serious. "It should be, but I will tell you something that might ease your fears. Humanity nearly destroyed itself with those weapons. We fought wars that killed millions. We came very close to making our own planet uninhabitable." "What stopped you?" Shiral asked. "We learned," Chen said simply. We learned that our weapons were too powerful to use recklessly. We learned that cooperation was better than conquest. We learned that the best victory is the war you never have to fight. That is why we build such strong defenses, so that we never again face the choice of using our most terrible weapons. The room was quiet for a moment. Cheryl felt a new understanding forming. Humans were not aggressive by nature. They were cautious. They had been burned by their own violence and learned from it. So what do you want from the congregation? Cheryl asked. What terms are you seeking? Chen pulled up a document on the holographic display. These are our proposed treaty terms. First, we want a formal non-aggression pact. Either side will attack the other without extreme provocation. That is acceptable, Cheryl said immediately. Second, we want free passage through congregation space for humanitarian missions. If people need help, we will not let politics stop us from reaching them. Cheryl hesitated. The High Council may object to that. They will see it as an infringement on our sovereignty. We will notify you of our missions in advance, Chen offered. You can send observers if you wish. We simply will not allow bureaucracy to cost lives when we have the ability to save them. After a moment, Cheryl nodded. I will recommend that my government accept this term. Third, we propose technology exchange programs. Limited, of course. Both sides will benefit from sharing knowledge in areas like medicine, agriculture, and civilian technology. But not military technology, Cheryl guessed. Chen smiled. Not immediately. Perhaps in time as trust grows. For now, we keep our weapons separate. That is wise, Cheryl agreed. Finally, Chen said, we propose a mutual defense pact against external threats. If either of our civilizations is attacked by a third party, the other will provide military assistance. Cheryl was surprised by this. You would help defend the congregation? After what we did to you? What Admiral Vextor did, Chen corrected gently. You personally tried to avoid the conflict. And yes, we would help. Because we believe in stability. A strong congregation is better for everyone than a power vacuum in this region. The military officer spoke up again. Besides, Admiral, we did not build our fleet just to fight you. We built it to defend against threats we have not met yet. The galaxy is a big place. There are probably dangers out there that neither of us know about. As if his words had summoned something, an urgent alarm sounded throughout the station. Chen immediately touched her communication device. Chen here. What is happening? A voice responded, tense with concern. Ambassador, we are receiving emergency signals from our long-range sensor network. Multiple unknown contacts detected in deep space beyond the frontier. Large fleet, unknown configuration heading toward civilized space. Chen's expression hardened. She looked at the military officer, who was already pulling up the sensor data on his personal device. His face went pale. How many ships? Chen asked. At least 200, possibly more. They are moving in formation, suggesting military purpose. Estimated time to reach the nearest inhabited system is 6 months. Cheryl felt ice form in her veins. A fleet of 200 unknown warships, coming from unexplored space. This was exactly the kind of threat the human officer had just mentioned. Chen looked at Cheryl with new intensity. Admiral, it seems our mutual defense pact just became urgent. I suggest we finalize this treaty immediately. We may need each other sooner than we thought. Cheryl stood and extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. I will contact my government at once. We need to prepare together. Chen shook her hand firmly. Welcome to the Alliance, Admiral. I hope your people are ready to see what humans can do when we are fighting alongside our friends instead of against them. Through the window, Cheryl could see human warships beginning to organize into battle formations. The massive vessels moved with purpose and discipline. She had feared their power when it was aimed at her people. Now she felt grateful that it would be aimed at a common enemy. Whatever was coming from the darkness of space, it would learn the same lesson the congregation had learned. Human firepower was not something to be challenged lightly. 6 months had passed since the treaty was signed. Admiral Cheryl stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Resilience, and watched the combined fleet assemble. Human warships and congregation vessels moved into formation together, preparing for the battle that was coming. The unknown fleet from deep space had been monitored constantly during its approach. Long-range probes had gathered information. The news was not good. The enemy force consisted of over 300 warships, all of similar design. They moved with military precision. They had ignored all attempts at communication. Their intentions were clear. Final ship count? Cheryl asked her tactical officer. 140 vessels in our combined fleet, Admiral. 60 human warships and 80 congregation ships. Shiral nodded. They were outnumbered more than 2 to 1. In the old days, that would have terrified her. Now she felt something different. Confidence, because half of their fleet was human. A communication request came through. Shiral accepted it, and Admiral Marcus Wade appeared on her screen. He was the human fleet commander, a veteran of numerous engagements. His gray hair and scarred face spoke of long experience. "Admiral Shiral," Wade said with a slight smile, "your fleet is in position. Are your people ready?" "As ready as we can be," Shiral replied. "This will be the first time congregation and human forces fight together. I hope we can coordinate effectively." "We have been training together for 6 months," Wade reminded her. "Your crews learned our tactics. Our crews learned your coordination techniques. We are not 2 separate fleets anymore. We are one combined force." Shiral appreciated his confidence. The past 6 months had been intense. Human officers had worked closely with congregation crews, teaching them new strategies. Congregation tacticians had shown humans the value of their precise coordination methods. Both sides had learned from each other. "The enemy fleet will reach weapons range in 2 hours," Wade continued. "I am sending you the final battle plan. Your forces will form the outer engagement zone. Use your superior coordination to control the battlefield. Human ships will form the breakthrough force. When you create openings, we will exploit them." "Playing to our strengths," Shiral said approvingly. "Good strategy." "One more thing," Wade said, his expression serious. "We still do not know what weapons these invaders have. They might have technology we have never seen. Everyone needs to stay alert and adapt quickly." "Understood. May fortune favor us both, Admiral Wade." "Fortune has nothing to do with it," Wade replied with a fierce grin. "We have preparation, firepower, and determination. That is all we need." The communication ended. Shiral turned to her crew. "All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. Today we face an enemy that threatens both our peoples. Today we show them what unity can accomplish." 2 hours later, the enemy fleet entered sensor range. Shiral studied the formation carefully. The invader ships were large and angular, built with dark metal that absorbed sensor scans. They moved in a wedge formation, clearly intending to break through the defensive line. "They are not slowing down," her tactical officer reported. "No communication attempts." "They are charging straight at us, arrogant," Shiral muttered. Then she smiled slightly. "Just like we were at Kelthera. Perhaps they need the same lesson we learned." Wade's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Wade. The enemy has chosen their path. We will show them the price of aggression. Congregation forces, begin your engagement pattern. Human forces, hold position and prepare for breakthrough maneuver." The congregation ships moved with practiced precision. They spread out in a wide net, surrounding the enemy fleet from multiple angles. This was their strength. Not overwhelming individual power, but perfect coordination and tactical flexibility. The invader fleet opened fire first. Their weapons were energy beams of a type Shiral had never seen before. They cut through space with green light, striking several congregation ships. Shields flickered and failed. 2 destroyers were destroyed immediately. "Their weapons are powerful," Shiral observed, "but not unstoppable. All ships return fire. Use dispersed pattern alpha. Do not let them focus on any single target." The congregation fleet responded. Plasma beams and missiles struck the invader ships from dozens of angles. The coordination was perfect. Every shot was timed to hit just after shields had been stressed by previous attacks. Slowly, damage began to accumulate on the enemy vessels, but the invaders were tough. They pushed forward, ignoring losses. 3 more congregation ships were destroyed. The enemy was winning through brute force. Then the human fleet moved. The Indomitable led the charge with 5 sister ships flanking it. Behind them came 20 more heavy cruisers and dreadnoughts. They did not spread out like the congregation ships. They formed a tight spearhead formation and drove straight into the enemy fleet. The invaders turned their weapons on the human ships. Green energy beams struck the Indomitable's shields. For a moment, the shields held. Then they failed, just as they had at Kelthera, but again the armor held. The human warships absorbed punishment that would have destroyed any other vessel and kept advancing. Then they fired back. The sound of railguns firing echoed through space. Tungsten slugs and depleted uranium projectiles tore through enemy shields and hulls. The human point defense systems created zones of destruction around each ship, shooting down every missile that came close. The Indomitable's main gun charged and fired. The massive tungsten penetrator punched through 6 enemy ships in a straight line. Explosions bloomed in its wake. Shiral watched in amazement. The invader fleet had seemed unstoppable. But they were not prepared for human firepower. They had probably never encountered an enemy that built ships specifically to survive and deliver overwhelming damage. All congregation ships tighten the net, Shiral ordered. The humans are breaking their formation. We will prevent them from regrouping. The combined strategy worked perfectly. The congregation ships used their mobility and coordination to control the battlefield, herding enemy vessels into killing zones. The human ships provided the devastating firepower needed to destroy those trapped enemies. The battle raged for 3 hours. It was brutal and costly. The combined fleet lost 37 ships, including 23 congregation vessels and 14 human warships. But the invader fleet was completely destroyed. Not a single enemy ship escaped. When the last invader ship exploded, Shiral allowed herself to breathe. They had won. The threat was eliminated. Admiral Wade appeared on her screen again. His uniform was torn and there was a cut on his forehead, but he was smiling. Excellent coordination, Admiral Shiral. Your tactical control made the difference. Your firepower made the difference, Shiral countered. Together we were stronger than either fleet could have been alone. Agreed, Wade said. This is what the Alliance was meant to be. Not humans dominating or congregation following. True partnership. Shiral looked out at the debris field where the battle had been fought. She thought about Admiral Vextor and his pride. He had seen the humans as a threat to be destroyed. He had been wrong. The real threat had come from somewhere else, from the unknown depths of space, and only by working together had they survived it. Admiral Wade, Shiral said thoughtfully, 6 months ago I stood in your space and feared your power. I thought humans were aggressive warmongers who would eventually threaten all of us. And now? Wade asked. Now I understand. You do not build weapons to threaten others. You build them to defend what matters. Your families, your civilization, and now your allies. That is not aggression. That is responsibility. Wade nodded slowly. We learned that lesson the hard way, through centuries of conflict. We almost destroyed ourselves with our own weapons, so we decided that if we must have power, we will use it to protect, not to conquer. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Shiral observed. There are more threats out there. We saw only one today. Yes, Wade agreed. But now we face them together. The congregation brings wisdom, coordination, and diplomatic reach. Humanity brings technological strength and military power. Combined, we can protect this entire region of space. Shiral extended her hand in the human gesture she had learned. Though they were separated by space and screens, the meaning was clear. To the Alliance, Admiral Wade. May it last for generations. Wade returned the gesture. To the Alliance, and to the lesson we all learned. True strength comes not from weapons alone, but from knowing when to use them and when to extend friendship instead. As the communication ended, Shiral looked at her bridge crew. They were tired but proud. They had fought alongside humans and proven themselves worthy allies. She thought back to that day at Kelthera when the Indomitable had entered their space. They had thought their firepower could halt it. They had been so very wrong. But that defeat had led to something better than victory. It had led to understanding. The humans had proven that a single warship could defeat an entire fleet. But more importantly, they had proven that strength without wisdom was dangerous, and that the best use of overwhelming power was to prevent war, not wage it. Set course for home, Shiral ordered. We have a victory to report and a future to build. The Resilience turned and began its journey back to congregation space, accompanied by its human allies.